Good morning from Cedar Creek Bottoms. Hope everyone's doing okay today. Today me and Rebecca had brought this up about a month ago about starting doing some, what's that, Friday night Fireside tales. There we go. Y'all have to forgive me, I don't remember well no more. In that video, we were coming from a place we had went and got trees, or went to look at trees, and we were heading to another place to get trees. Fruit trees, and we went over the mountain, and we done a little short video of us going over the mountain, going down one of the Forest Service roads, and was talking about some of the other stuff I had experienced in my lifetime. So today we're going to kick it off with that. On these tales we'll start having on Friday nights, hopefully come out every Friday night. We'll start talking about different things, but today I'm going to start off on one that that kind of, what you say, brought me back to reality in 2007. 2007, January 12th of 2007 to be exact, was a Friday. Me and two friends decided to go hunting down to Lowndes County management area down in sort of south central Alabama, about 20 miles east of Selma, the little town of Whitehall, just a wide place in the road. There's a management area there. The Alabama Conservation, I think, bought that in the 90s. That land, it once belonged to Lady Bird, Lyndon Johnson's wife, because I think she was originally from Alabama, or her people were. But her family ended up settling the state of Alabama, about 10,000 acres in there, located on the Alabama River. This management area had been established for a while, had a large population of deer, hogs. So we decided to go down there and maybe, if we couldn't kill a deer, maybe we'll get lucky and kill a hog that day. So anyway, we left about 3:30 in the morning. It's an hour and a half drive from my house there, plus we wanted to stop and get breakfast. But anyway, we got there a little before daylight, went by the check-in station, got our daily permits, what we could harvest and what we couldn't. And we went down into the backside from the check-in station. I sat in there that morning and seen a lot of does, but we didn't have a permit to take does that day, but didn't see a buck. So we come out that day about lunch and decided we'd go over and hunt behind a church that the state had planted a big, large green field over there. It's not very wide, but very long. This green field, I wouldn't be scared to say, is 500-600 yards long. One of the biggest green fields I ever seen. So we parked right past the little church called St. Mark's Church. I can't remember what denomination that church was. Just a little country church out in the woods. The land used to be, you could tell, was pasture because there's old fences, and of course the land around that has started growing up because cows hadn't been on it in a while, and so typically how stuff starts growing back up in briars and saplings and everything. But anyway, we found the green patch, and there was 3 of us, so we just decided to spread out. One of my friends, Keith, said he would take that end of the green field closest to the truck, So he took a position up, and we knew each other would be in line out there, so it wouldn't be no shooting at each other or anything. We would shoot with what would come out in the green field. So if anything legally came out there that day. My other friend Larry, which also happens to be kinfolk, he goes to the middle, and I go on down to the very end. So I get down there, it's probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and a real beautiful area down in there. Swamp all in behind me. In front of me is the green field, and I'm down by a corner fence. You can tell where probably a cross fencing had took place at one time, and I found a big old white oak, excuse me. Very big tree. You could tell it's a very old tree, probably 100 years old easily. So I decided, well, that'd be a good place to just sit down right there by that tree, because that would break up my outline from anything entering the field. Well, I'd sit there from 2 o'clock to about 3:30, going on 4. I don't really remember the exact time because I didn't look at my watch. Also that day, I guess the Air Force was moving a lot of stuff, because there is an Air Force base 30 miles away, then there's another 20 miles away, and I think they were transporting stuff back and forth, because a lot of C-130s and several other type of aircraft kept coming over, so I'd watch them go over. Most of them was tree level just about it, so they'd rattle the ground when they'd come over. But around 3:30, going on 4, 2 does stepped out into the field and started feeding, probably 50 yards from me. I sat there and watched them, and of course could not take a doe that day because they wasn't allowing no does. It's only buck only, or a hog. So I'm hoping, I said, well, maybe these 2 does, thought to myself, maybe these 2 does coming out, I'll be able to have a buck come. So a little after 4, I noticed both does started looking back in the woods behind me. They wasn't looking at me, but they was looking straight behind them. And I noticed they kept looking, and the ears were all on alert, and even their body was alert. You could tell. Well, all of a sudden, they both bolted the opposite way out of the field from the sound. I mean, they just bolted out of that field. And I'm going like, well, I hadn't moved. There was no wind, so they shouldn't have smelt me. And plus, where they were looking from told me there was something in there. So, of course, I'm thinking the buck's coming. I said, yeah, he's going to flip out here right at dark. So I kind of stay still, kind of paying attention. Well, a few minutes later, I hear some racket in the leaves. So thinking it's him easing through or coming up to the field. Probably, I figured if there's a buck, he was trailing them does up to that field. Well, I'm sitting there listening, and I hear the crunching again a couple times. Well, about that time, in behind me, on the back side of that swamp, is a railroad track. So I guess they came down in there to switch out a couple of cars. Of course, it got loud down in there for a few minutes. And anyway, they finally got through with their switching after about 20 minutes. Of course, by then it was 4:30 going on 5. And I could hear the crunching, and I could tell the crunching this time was very close to me. Or, getting close. I said, nah. So, of course, curiosity got the best of me. So I ease up against this big white oak tree. Still, it's still covering my outline. And I just peek back into the woods a little bit and just start scanning. Don't see nothing nowhere, and I just stand real still. Well, about that time, I seen something probably maybe 60, 70 feet from me, maybe a little further, peeping around a tree looking at me. And I was like, is that somebody? Because one of the first things that hit me about it was there was no orange. I'm going like, why would somebody be doing that in here during hunting season, walking around in this swamp with no orange on, knowing there's hunting going on? Well, about that time, it kind of went in behind the tree, but the thing was, it was behind a tree that it was bigger than the tree, so I could still see parts of it. And after another couple of minutes, I done a boo-boo I shouldn't have done, that I wouldn't recommend nobody ever doing. And from then on, I made sure I had my binoculars with me, but I raised my gun and looked down my scope. And when I pulled it in, I could see the shoulder and arm, part of the neck, or really not much of a neck, but you could tell where the neck's supposed to be. But I could see probably this much, and part of the leg sticking out. And when I looked through that scope at it, I said, whoa, this thing's full of hair. And I realized it didn't have clothes on. So I automatically went, uh-oh, what is this? Well, about that time, it peeped back out of the tree looking at me, and I'm looking at it. We're both sitting there staring at each other. And this maybe went on for another 10, 15, 20 seconds, I don't know. All of a sudden, though, it just dropped down and shot out of there like a rocket. It shot down out on all fours. I mean, I have never seen nothing move that close, that fast in my lifetime. Well, of course, that unnerved me. It was getting close to dark. I just had seen this, so I said, thought to myself, I might want to get out of here. So I started walking back up. By the time I got up to where Larry was, he'd done come out, and we were standing in the field, and I asked him, I said, you hear or see anything? He said, no, I ain't seen nothing. I said, okay. I said, well, I seen something standing in there in the woods, but he said, well, was it somebody? I said, well, it was standing on two legs, then it left on all four, but he said, Anyway, we walked on up, and by the time we got up there, Keith done come out and went to the truck. So we get up there, and I don't say much else about it. Anyway, on the way home, so a few days later, I talked to Keith, and I tell him what I seen, and asking him what he thinks, and he said, "Sound like you seen a Bigfoot." So, of course, that really got my curiosity very highly up. So, so I went on the internet and just typed in Bigfoot sightings in Alabama. And Lord, when I did, I just didn't realize that the sightings, they had been in Alabama, going back for years. And the site I found was called AlabamaBigfoot.com. Mr. Mac Lane down in Clark County was the owner of the website, and so I really liked the way they had their website set up, and you could tell they wasn't attacking people or making fun of nobody. They were just taking reports and talking about it. So I decided to send him an email and tell him what I saw there in Lowndes County. So I ended up sending him an email. And a few days later, I get an email back from him, and he tells me he appreciates me sending in the encounter, and that there'd been other reports from that area, and so that kind of, encouraged me. He told me, he said about a article that had been in the Alabama Game and Fish in 1998, talking about a sighting not 10 miles from where I was at. So, of course, I went and found that news article from the Game and Fish and read it. That was very, very interesting. Y'all need to go look that up. That'd be Alabama Game and Fish. I can't remember what month it was, but 1998. And it was 10 miles from where I seen what I seen at. But anyway, Mr. McLean asked me, could another friend of his who takes sightings and reports, could he call me? And I said, sure. So it's probably rocked on about another week or so. And this fellow calls me, and his name is Tal Banco. And he is part of the RFP, which is Reclusive Forest Primate Project. Him and Mr. McLean kind of work together. And so we went to talking about my sighting, and he asked me a lot of questions. And then he informed me that there'd been a lot of sightings in that area of Whitehall and Benton and towards Selma, and some of them hadn't been good. Some of them haven't been real good sightings. They were kind of like aggression. So anyway, me and him talked for length on the phone, and he asked could he republish my report and on AlabamaBigfoot.com, and I said sure. Of course, not put my name. So anyway, a few days later, he sends me an email with it, and he says this basically what happened. And I said yes sir, that's pretty much the truth. He said okay, well it'll be coming out on your website, on the website soon, so I just want to make sure that looked good and we didn't get anything crossed up or messed up. So that a few days later it come out, and of course I read over it, and I sent them emails, hey, it looks good, and that's what happened. So well, about a month or so rolls around, and I get a call back from Mr. Tall, and he said, Mark, he said, I'm coming to Alabama in a couple of weeks to a little town or little community called Hollins, Alabama. How close is that to you? And I said, well, about 10 miles. He said, well, I'm going to some property to do some research, and he said, since I'm coming close where you live, can we meet up? I said, well, sure, yeah, I like that. So he said, well, when I get ready to leave, I'll call you and let you know what motel I'm going to be staying at. And I asked him, I said, well, may I ask where are you going to at Hollins? And he said, and he called the people's names, and Lord have mercy, I knew the people. And he told me all about what was going on their property, and I informed him that I used to belong to a hunting club. It was right there around them people. And I said, when I used to hunt down there was some weird things were going on down there in that place. Me and Larry had coon hunted that place, plus I deer hunted down there and turkey hunted. But down there at night time, boy, that was a different area. I've heard trees just fall on a night and there was no wind, and I don't know. That was a weird property. Sometimes you get the heebie-jeebies down there, what I call them. Some people call, hair standing up on your neck. And me and Larry had times where dogs just went in and hunt down there. We'd turn them out on some of them creeks, and just, I don't know, the dogs wouldn't hunt. But going anyway, so, he told me he was coming. And I said, well, I'll be, proud to meet you. And he said, well, do you think it's where we can meet up in Lowndes County too? He said, how far a drive is that for you? I said, well, about an hour and a half. He said, well, he said, would that be would that be okay? I said, sure. He said, because I stay at a lodge down there where I do a lot of my research. And he said, I usually stop there and stay one a night or two before I'm gonna come into Sylacauga. And he said it'd be good if we could meet one of those days down there. I said, sure, we'll do that. So we set the day, and I got a hold of Keith. I think Larry couldn't go; he was still working at the time. And I said, you want to ride down Lowndes County and meet Mr. Tall down there where I seen that? And Keith said, sure. So we arrived down there that morning. Now it's done got into May, so it's done got hot, getting hot, and done greened up in the woods. It's totally different than what it was in January. And so we parked right there at St. Mark's Church, and he said, I want to go to the spot you were at, and we'll go from there. I said, okay. So as we were starting in, about 100 yards in, there's a big wild plum patch on the left. And it was just full of plums. And Mr. Tall, he said, man, I love wild plums. I'm gonna have to get me some of them. So I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And so he walks out there, and we kind of following behind, and I see him stop all of a sudden, and he starts looking, and he said, come here. And we walk over there, and Lord have mercy, it's just footprints everywhere. And he started taking pictures, and I thought a minute, and I said, well, maybe it's some kids around here coming down here because they know the plums was ready. But I said, barefooted, full of, this place is cottonmouths and rattlesnakes. Plus, it's a couple of 100 yards from the road. And some of them were very big, what I remember. He took a bunch of pictures. And he said, well, it's one of two things. He said, Bigfoot or it's humans? And he said, I just got a sneaky feeling it's the Bigfoot. He said, so we tried to trail some of it out, and of course the footprints just kind of disappeared into, you know, thick stuff. So that's another thing we thought it may have been a Bigfoot. So anyway, we stay up there in that area probably 20-30 minutes just looking around. He's showing us stuff, and you can see where some of the plums had been picked off way up. Some of these trees were about 9 foot tall, real big wild plum trees, and you could tell where something had, you know, been up in top of the tree, which, you know, could have been a coon, possum, or something too. But anyway, we left that area and started walking down the edge of the green patch, which of course in green patch, you know, the grass had really growed, and you could really tell where the hogs had been in there. They'd really been tearing that place up. We get on down to the other end of the field, find the tree. There I point to the tree, and he said, I want you to go stand at that tree, just like you did that day. And he said, I'm going to walk down in here, and you kind of direct to me toward where that thing was standing by that tree. So he started off down in there, and I started kind of pointing and telling him move this way, move that way. And he finally gets down to what I thought was the tree. And he says, so he looks back at me, and he says, yeah, he said, that's about the footage you're talking about. And he said, well, come on down here, but walk a straight line to me. He said, because I'm going to show you some stuff. So I head down to him, and he's done walked back toward us. And he said, we get down there in a couple of spots where the ground's barren. He said, look right here, there was tracks there. They were like 12, 13 inches. He said, they're going to the swamp. And so we started fanning out. He took some more pictures. We fanned it out, went on down in there, and of course we found more tracks all up and down in there. And he said these are used in this area very prominently. He said, but anyway, so I felt a lot better leaving that place, that I'd seen what I'd seen. So he told me, he said, well, next day I'm coming in Sylacauga, where he's going to stay at, and he said, I'd like to get back with you. I said, sure. So anyway, next day he gives me a call, and he said, well, I'm going out on this property in Hollins tonight and tomorrow. And he said, maybe tomorrow evening when I come out, he said, maybe we can, you know, go for lunch or supper. And he said, I know you said you was in a hunting club, that you've heard some weird stuff up there. And he said, I'd like to ride up there. And I said, well, sure. So next afternoon I hear from him. So we decided to go up there that night on our hunting lease, which is pretty much in my backyard. We get up there right about dark. And he asked him about the land, where the water's at, what, you know. And we tell him, well, there's a 7-acre lake on this place. And he said, well, let's ride over there. So we ride over at that spot, and we get out. And of course, it's after dark. And he shines his light around. He said, oh, yeah, he said, this is a squatchy place, yeah. So we sit there a few minutes, and he said, well, let's get them stirred up if they're here. So he brings out an elk whistle. And when he blows that thing, way off, maybe a mile, we hear this roar like come back at us. And he said, he sits there and he's quiet. He does it again. Well, about that time, there's one close to us that does this, makes out this howling sound. He said, yeah, you got him. I said, well, that might be explaining some things that's went on up here in the past. He said, what kind of things? I said, well, just like that other club down there, you know, in Hollins, I said, a lot of times dogs wouldn't hunt. Hear stuff walking around you while you're hunting, you know, while you, I even told him, I said, one night we was coming back out of trail, and, you know, I see eye shine in front of me down the trail, but I said, what caught me off guard about that eye shine was it looked like it was 7-8 foot off the ground. And I said, it turns, and I said, when we get to that point with the dogs, I said, dogs go acting funny. And he said, yeah, he said, probably was one. He said, more than likely, and And he went to Aston, had anybody in the club seen anything? And of course, later I would find out, yeah, when you go to really talking to people, you really find out more. And then once people figure out you've seen one, they come more a little open with you about it. So anyway, that's the first encounter that I had of many. Was there in Lowndes County. It's one that kind of got me started in, I guess you call it the world of Bigfoot. I always tell people when reality set in that there's more things on this earth than we know. I don't know what they are. I have a sneaky feeling I think I know what they are, but that's my opinion, of course. And I'm not no Bigfoot expert by no means, even though I've done a lot of research and been on a lot of outings and seen a lot of things. And I don't consider myself a researcher or an expert. I'm just somebody like other people. I'm curious about what they are. And I'm curious why there seems to be like a cover-up on it sometimes. And also I'm curious why it's hard for people to believe something like that roams the earth. I mean, our Bible, the Old Testament talks about a lot of things before the flood. So, I don't know. But I will tell you, since 2007, I've experienced them a lot. Had one time real close, within 20 foot. Been on several outings, went and worked a lot of sightings in my area, which is pretty much South Talladega County, northern Coosa County, parts of Clay County. Been back down to Lowndes one time, been to some other parts of Alabama, and been to a few other states. But my main research area is probably about a 30-mile radius. A lot of that's just because I have to work for a living and I farm for a living, and so it's hard to get out and do all you want to. For a few years I did step back from it a little bit, especially after a few run-ins with some people that were about fame and money. So they were using people, and I'm going to leave that there. Also, I was involved in 2013 with finding Bigfoot in Alabama. Got to meet that crew, and very nice bunch of people. They spent several days here up on our hunting lease and on another friend's property, and then a couple other places, and had a few things happen. So, but that's more for down the road. But I hope you enjoyed what I've told you. I hope you look at things with an open mind in this world. I think there's a lot more to it than we really realize. I know this doesn't really go with homesteading, but it kind of does. Me and Rebecca's main purpose is to help people to that want to get in homestead, and what we're doing, and what stuff you might see us doing that might help you down the road. But too, also, and we're not experts in it. I mean, I was fortunate to grow up in a family that farmed and hunted, fished, trapped, and done all of that stuff. But and y'all excuse me, I'm not used to talking into a camera, so I'm gonna have to get used to doing this. So just bear with me. But anyway, from now we're going to start trying to do this on a weekly basis. Besides our homesteading, it does kind of go in with the homesteading because a lot of the homesteaders live out in rural areas, and some of them are going to deal with these things. They were coming to my property after I started fooling with them on the hunting club. They started coming to my property, my house. My sister-in-law, ex-wife, some other people in that area seen them. That will be for some stuff down the road, because I'm going to start going through some of my sightings and encounters and tell a little bit about each one. So, but I hope you like this. I hope it's something that you're interested in. And I will be doing some other stuff, probably some history to go along. I'll be going out to some of the areas where these sightings were and showing you what the woods look like and terrain. That way you get a feel for what was going on there. Also, like I said, I'll be doing some stuff on history, because history kind of ties in with some of this stuff with the homesteading and the Bigfoot. And I just like for you to understand the area I live in. That way you kind of know that it's kind of rural, but it ain't. And they live right next door. So anyway, I hope you comment, like, subscribe, and please be nice. If you don't believe in Bigfoot, that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinions, but please do not downgrade anyone that does, because most people that have seen something, I've only run across one person I think was lying to me. I think they were just making it up, but everybody else has been very, very truthful about what they've seen. And they had no reason to really lie about it. They wasn't looking for attention. They're not looking for fame. They wasn't looking for nothing. They just happened to be at the spot they seen this at this time. And they wanted to, and what you see is a lot of people want to get it off their chest. They want to talk to people that understand them. And and you'd be surprised how many people have actually seen these things and had encounters with them, some good, some bad, that you'll never know about because they don't talk about it. So anyway, I hope you have a good evening, and I hope this video done well. I hope I spoke well enough. And like I said, I'm not used to talking into a camera, so I'm going to have to get used to that. But anyway, I hope you have a good day, and we'll be back soon with another one. Bye from Cedar Creek Bottom.